Hi, I'm Victoria, autism specialist teacher and mum to 2 children, a 10-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy. I've spent most of my school career working with children with challenging behaviour, either children with emotional and behavioural difficulties or, more recently, in a specialist unit for children with autism and challenging behaviour. By the time they arrive with me, many of my students have spent their entire school career being told off, being told they're naughty, being told they're non-compliant, being told that essentially they could do better. They often arrive thinking that they can't learn, thinking that they can't manage in a classroom, and thinking generally that most teachers don't like them. It's my job to turn that round, not because somebody pays me to do it, but because that is essentially what as teachers we should be doing. I want children to leave my classroom believing in themselves as learners, but more importantly as human beings who can go out into the world and be successful at whatever it is that they choose to do. For me, that's why I believe praise and tangible rewards are so important. If you've had a lifetime of being told you're not good enough, however short that lifetime is, someone needs to take hold of it and turn it around. Even better, someone should be grasping it by the horns earlier on, looking at these children, thinking how hard it is for them to learn and rewarding them for every bit of effort they make to do that. Some people argue that praise and positive reinforcement is false, that essentially children should work just for praise. My argument to that is, would you? How many of you would go out to work every single morning, do a job that's really difficult for you, that isn't intrinsically rewarding because you don't believe you can do it and you don't believe you can be successful, for no salary at all? And I suspect the answer is not many of you. And that's the philosophy that I keep in my head. My students have to work really hard, really hard, just to manage to stay on task. Some of them just to come in through the door into their classroom every morning. So there are various layers of reward schemes and systems that you can put in place, depending on the child. And before you think of any consequences, you need to make sure that your reward schemes are firmly in place. That doesn't mean I don't believe in consequences, because I do. Our students, like us, need to realise that in the real world there are consequences. But the point I'm making is this: you're far less likely to need to use those consequences if you've got your rewards right in the first place. The first point I want to make is that I strongly believe that all reward systems should be progressive. And by that what I mean is this: reward systems, particularly for children with autism, can be really frustrating if they've worked really hard all week. They've managed Monday, they've managed Tuesday, they've managed Wednesday. It gets to the middle of Thursday afternoon and suddenly they have a meltdown, at which point they lose everything they've worked for all week because they haven't managed the full week. It's nonsensical. It causes far more trouble than it's worth. It upsets the children, it upsets the parents, it upsets you as a teacher because you're absolutely gutted that they haven't got through the week. And it just leaves everybody with a bit of a bad taste in their mouth. And it's totally avoidable. So, let's say for instance your goal is that a particular child has 5 good days. They don't need to be sequential days. So for every good day they have, they get a mark on a chart or a sticker or whatever it is that you're giving them for those good days. If Thursday's a bad day, that's fine. They don't get the reward on Friday. Instead, they get it on Monday. They haven't lost everything. One bad day hasn't been the cause of everything they do going. The other thing that's really important, especially in those early days, is that rewards are immediate. For some children, those longer term rewards are great, all right? And it's something that certainly many of our students can build up to over time. But initially, they need some kind of reward or recognition right then. That may be a token to build up, to buy something bigger at the end of the day or at the end of the week, but they've got something physical there. For others, it might be a sweet, it might be a crisp, it might be whatever it is that motivates that particular child. And I'm quite up for edible reinforcers. I don't mind what it is, especially in those early days. The focus in my mind is always, what can I do to make sure this child knows that I like them, that I recognise when they're trying hard, and that I want them to be successful. Because for a lot of our children that is key, and it's something we've really got to build up. So there's different layers of rewards you can have. For me, I've got immediate reinforcers. I've got my edible snacks, I've got my tokens, I've got tick sheets for my older ones who I do it discreetly in my pocket so that they know they've got a tick but the rest of the class doesn't if we're out in mainstream. From that, I've got some long-term goal that they're working to. So it may be that once they've got 10 ticks or 10 tokens, they get an hour to play on a computer game that they like. It may be that they get to buy something from my class shop that has rewards in it, some of which are edible, some of which are things like Pokemon cards. They go down really well and aren't very expensive. For others, it might be that they're working towards a ride on a lift in our main building. It might be that they're working for a cafe trip at the end of the week. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything. It can be something that costs a lot of money. It can be something that costs absolutely no money at all. But what it has to be is something that motivates that individual student. It's rare, especially in a group of children with autism, to find that a reward that works for everybody. You have to look at their individual needs, their individual interests. Talk to them, talk to their parents, talk to their carers, past staff that they've worked with, and really find out what it is that motivates them to want to work and want to learn. Make sure you immediately recognise any efforts they've made. Make sure you're consistent, always. Make sure you don't take away rewards or tokens that have been earned. And above all, make sure that the reward itself is something that interests that particular student. There's far more information over on the blog about different types of reward schemes and how I operate them, so please do go over there and have a look. But more than that, please just remember how hard our children have to work, and make sure that whatever you're doing in your classroom, you're building those rewards in, not just in lesson time, but in free time, because that's a really hard time for a lot of our students to manage. If you've got any questions, or if you haven't used reward schemes before, or if you have and they haven't been successful and you want someone to bounce ideas off for a new scheme, please do get in touch with me via social media and I will be more than happy to help. Thank you so much for listening.